everybody. Welcome back to the Business of Boutique Fitness podcast. We are excited to keep talking about building your dream team. Today, we're going to be talking about onboarding. That first 90 days being so key in setting up your dream team. I'm thrilled to be joined again with Matt. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Caroline. So excited to talk through this. I love this stuff.
Yes, me as well. Well, tell me a bit about yourself. What led you here? Tell me.
Yeah, sure. Well, I am an Australian, so born and raised over there. I started my fitness career back in sort of 2010, 2011. Personal trainer, group fitness instructor, did all of that, worked my way up, and I've been managing gyms, district manager. I've done big box, recreation centers, not-for-profit, for-profit, the whole thing, and been in the States for about 4 years now. And I work with Studio Grow in the Start Your Studio Profitably.
Nice.
Yeah.
It sounds like I've worked with a lot of different teams.
Yes, but return the favor. Tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah. I'm Caroline. I own a yoga studio in Portland, Oregon. Also in the process of opening up another multimodality and recovery-focused studio also in Portland. And I am the team captain here for the Grow Your Studio Profitably program at Studio Grow.
So exciting to talk with you today.
Yes.
90-day onboarding plans.
90-day onboarding plan. So important because I think a lot of owners that we see come in have no plan and then are like, why are my team not performing to my expectations? But wait, did I ever actually tell them what I expected out of them? And maybe not. So we're trying to bridge that gap. What mistakes have you seen clients that you've worked with or in your own experience teams kind of falter with in terms of onboarding?
Honestly, name a mistake and I bet you I've either seen it or experienced it myself, right? If you're listening to this and you haven't had a horrible onboarding experience at a job, then my hat goes off to you because I think that that is something that unites almost everyone on the planet, right?
Yes.
But I guess the real question is kind of what defines a bad onboarding experience, right? I think it's going to be slightly different for everyone as well. People have different personality styles and different things that resonate with them. And I think that one of the worst things that I've seen is people just being left completely alone, right? So obviously, micromanaging is never the way to go in situations, but when you're onboarding people, having really focused attention, I think goes a long way. Because I know for me, I can be like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to interrupt. They're so busy. I don't want to be something added onto their plate, right? But I have this question that I need to know. And then I'll ask it, of course, because you have to, but trying to mitigate that anxiety that new team members feel, I feel like is a really important part.
Totally. And it's a fine balance between the micromanaging and the just letting them run with it. And so I think defining your onboarding is going to really help find that middle ground where it's open door. You can make mistakes. You will make mistakes, but you can talk to me and ask me the questions. And that's what I'm here for. And I think the other thing I see in terms of onboarding is, again, that idea of like, every process lives in the owner's head and it's not documented and it makes perfect sense to me, but how does it not make sense to you? And so I think really taking the time before you're even starting to onboard these employees and document the processes, have those standard operating procedures really laid out and clean so that people can follow the rules without needing you for everything.
Absolutely. And consistency as well, getting everyone trained and onboarded the same way. I always laugh at, have you seen that meme, which is like me training someone new at work? You're not supposed to do it this way, but this is how I do it, right? Yeah. That meme is so true because everyone's doing it a little bit differently. So when you have a really clear onboarding template laid out, everyone's going through it, you know that everyone's doing it the right way and the way that you would like it to be done.
Yes. And I think we touched on this a bit in the last episode of this series, but striking that fine balance between culture and skills and like hard and soft skills. I need you, yes, to do the job and get the tasks done, but I also want to make sure you're having a good time. You feel seen as a person. You feel supported. I have an idea of where you want to take this. So important to strike that balance.
Absolutely. And I think that so often when we're building these things out, we're so focused on getting people trained on process or teaching them the systems and all that kind of stuff that we're forgetting to integrate them into the culture. Whereas when people have that comfort zone with their colleagues, you know, back to my earlier, they're not going to feel as awkward asking a question and interrupting because I know Caroline, we've got a relationship, right? I feel comfortable with that. So the cultural integration is a huge piece of it, and making sure that it's balanced, like you said, is definitely what you're trying to achieve here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think if we look at that 90-day plan, something I find that works really great is kind of creating that template. And yes, it's going to change by employee and job type. But if you can sit down again before you even onboard that first employee to your studio and detail out like, what is the goal here? Maybe month one, we're really focusing on just learning the tasks and shadowing people. And month two, there's a little bit of agency and like you can kind of see how I would make a decision. Let's see where you run with it. And then by month three, maybe we're giving them a larger initiative, really thinking of kind of the roadmap, because I think that's important as you onboard employees so they can see, oh, I'm not just going to do this one rote like checkbox task every single day for however long I work here. There is growth. There is a map here.
Yeah, it's a 90-day plan, but really it's kind of like a 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? It's kind of like 3 30-day plans all put together. So tell me, how do you typically start? Like you've just hired me. I've signed on the dotted line. What happens next?
I mean, I think onboarding has to start before even that first day.
Completely agree.
Like, yes, let's get all the admin taken care of. Let's make sure you're good to go, but also make sure you're really excited to come in for that first day. It'll be normal to have nerves. That's okay. We've all been there. Like, get that out as well. But I think like thinking of something, whether it's a gift or a video or a personal invite or something that is unique to your studio, your brand, how you want to lead people, that makes them feel really seen and excited, a little gift or something. I think that can go a long way.
Yeah, even just a piece of retail or something that maybe you've had in the studio for a while. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg, but gifting someone a piece like that, it instantly makes them feel part of the team. And also that's a real tangible gift that they can hold and go, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also, again, we talk about client experience, so paramount. We need that, but also employee experience. So how can I make your first day on the job so exceptional that you are telling everyone like, I started at the studio. It's amazing. I love the people I work with. The clients are awesome. The owner is amazing. Like really think through those details so you set people off on the strongest foot.
And you know what I find is just so important to this, and it often gets missed. Tell the other team members in the studio that someone is starting that day.
Yes.
There is nothing worse than when you arrive for your first day and you introduce yourself and everyone's like, okay, hi, what? And you have to say, oh, I guess I work here now. Like, I guess I'm your team member.
Yes.
So awkward. So communicate that you have a new team member starting. That is definitely the first thing.
Yes. So then we've got that set up. They're coming in for the first day. What are we looking at on first day, or maybe more often like first week on the job?
Again, I feel such a balance that you have to strike here, right? Because have you ever started in a job where they've given you a tiny amount of work to do, you've completed it in about 10 minutes, and then you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, and you're like, I want to ask for more, but I don't want to be a pain, but also I'm bored and time is going so slow, and what do I do? So we can't overwhelm people by giving them everything all at once, but also keep them busy. And people are always trying to make a good first impression when they start. So they're going to be smashing that work out. So don't think it's going to take them a super long amount of time, right? So for me, day one, I'll be looking at building relationships, right? I'll be looking at doing all the system stuff, making sure they can log in, making sure that they can access everything that they're going to need to. A little bit of an orientation as well in terms of this is our business, this is our mission, vision, values, this is what we do, all of that. And then just really connecting everyone within the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to start to slowly integrate them into those SOPs for maybe the key couple of tasks that they're going to be using. And I love to make sure when creating an SOP that it's got the written version, maybe a Loom video of talking through, like, I want to cover all learning styles so you don't feel that weird, like, oh, I want to ask because I don't get what this means, or what is this lingo I've never heard, client journey before, what even is that? And so I think really covering that becomes key. And at the end of that first week, I really like to have a check-in that is just like, tell me, how has this felt? Too much? Too little? Are we doing good? How is the fit here before we go farther?
Absolutely. And something that I've seen done, which I really, really like, is a buddy system. Right. So obviously they've got you as the leader who brought them on. They've got that existing relationship. But I think setting them up with a buddy who is maybe in the same role or a similar role that they can go to without feeling like they're bothering you. And it's official, like it's an official buddy system. That done really well can be hugely helpful as well.
Yeah. And if I get chosen to be this new employee's buddy, I'm like, okay,
exactly.
I am doing pretty good at my job here.
Right. I'm being trusted with this.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Right.
Yes. I love that. And then week 2, if we're looking at it in like really weeks 2 through 4, I'm starting to integrate you into the tasks. And maybe it's more shadowing, like here's your buddy. They're going to run through the call list today. We're calling all the pre-purchase people. We want to get them on an intro. Oh, here's like a standard kind of objection we face or this type of person, and kind of slowly integrating them to your client avatar. And here's the common questions we get and all of those things in real practical applications.
Yeah, definitely. And I love a cheat sheet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of a cheat sheet, right? So when I'm starting a job, I'm making my own cheat sheet, but if I can also get given one, hugely helpful, right? So one of the best cheat sheets that I ever did was you put the name of the person, you put their role, but we also know sometimes we do things outside of what you think our role title would specify, right? So also having kind of like a nickname for them, right? So it might be Carolyn, team captain, but it's also like software chick. You know what I mean? So if you have any software-based questions, you know to go to Caroline.
Yes.
Right? Having something like that as well orients people, and then setting up introductions to those people as well, so that I don't have to reach out to you out of nowhere with no pre-existing relationship. If you just put 15-minute like meet and greets on their calendar, I think that's a really nice way to go about it too.
Totally. I think that's great. And I think like throughout this journey, kind of checking in and seeing how they feel with the cultural fit. I think also like we didn't touch on this in the pre-onboarding, but do they take classes at the studio? Are they aware of what it's like to be a client here? Because I think that can really inform how you're going to interact with people and get them really integrated, yes, in the community of your staff, but also the community of your clients. Because for most roles in a studio, you're going to be interacting with the clients and you need to know where they're coming from on these things.
Absolutely. And if you're not interacting with the clients, there's probably something wrong going on. So absolutely. So striking that balance too between, interacting with them, but also getting your job done.
Yeah. And then I think coming to like at the end of month 1 in onboarding, I like to bring that job description back up and just kind of, for me, do a mental checklist of, are all of these things being tackled? Okay. If not all of them, that's okay. We're just new and we're learning how this unique person deals with each of these tasks we're handing out, but kind of just making sure we're on the right track, showing it to the employee too, making sure they feel good about it, and just doing that check-in. I think like check-ins are so important in the first 90 days.
Yeah. And I think that we'll find at the end of month 1 is probably where a lot of this onboarding will just disappear, right? It'll fall off a cliff. Like after 4 weeks, you kind of think, oh yeah, I've seen them so many times. They know everyone. They're fully integrated. It's super important that this is where you really dig in. And just because they know what your systems are now and they know how to work your CRM, it doesn't mean that they're done, right? There is still a whole lot of integration that goes in. So my advice for everyone listening is, even if you've got that first 4 weeks really locked down in a good process, do you have the next 30? Do you have the 30 after that? Because they're equally important parts.
And it's such a good reminder because like we're hiring these positions because we're busy and I need to offload some of these tasks, or maybe my manager is busy. I need to offload their tasks. And it can be frustrating to kind of run into that. I feel like I'm working maybe more, but I just brought this person on and payroll is higher and all of these things. But it like, if we want to keep this employee long-term, we really have to put the time and effort and energy into it. Otherwise, again, we get stuck in that recruiting cycle. We'll never get out.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never been a month into a job and felt like, oh yeah, I'm the old guard. No, yeah, I've been here for a while. I know everything that's going on. I've never felt like that, right? So just because you're more comfortable with having them in the space and they're ticking the boxes in terms of their position description, it does not mean that they're integrated. Yes. So don't give up.
And they might have more questions because now they're starting to do some things on their own and they're like, wow. Okay,
and more insightful questions too. So what have they picked up on? Because they've just come into your business with fresh eyes, and that is so valuable. So if we're not tapping into that and creating that kind of environment where we can give the feedback and be really honest and open with each other, I mean, if we're not checking in with them, we might be missing some great nuggets of information and ideas.
Totally. And when we think of a really strong performing team, there is that like that inclusivity, that collaboration. We are all working towards the same goal. And so I think creating that kind of open door space where, hey, I like know I'm new here, but I see the way you guys are doing this. And what if we did it this way? Or like, here's a gap I'm seeing in the process. Making them feel comfortable doing that, because that might be the key to upping your conversion rate, or like, we've just been missing this. It's a blind spot.
Exactly. We just didn't see it, right? So I think that's a really good point. And also encouraging that. And having that sort of team dynamic where people feel comfortable doing that is really important. And I think that if you feel like your team would not be receptive to that, that's a whole other situation that I think we need to have a conversation about, right? Because if anyone in our team is closed off from ideas or feedback, that's not great.
No,
So
not at all.
let's encourage this new person to share with us.
Yes, absolutely. So we get through month 1. They have an understanding of the job, maybe some new insights, some new ideas on how it's going to look for them. What should we focus on in month 2?
I think it's really nailing down and demonstrating results off the skills that they've learned, right? So they've gone through that introductory phase where they're wrapping their head around it. This for me is where goals really start to kick in, because you know the lay of the land now, right? So at this point, this is where I'm checking for 2 key things, right? Results, but also their proactiveness, because now you kind of have that North Star in terms of your job and what you're working towards. So what are you now getting ahead of? Right? You shouldn't be waiting for me or the team or anyone at this point to kind of be setting you up. You should have had clearly defined goals set up as part of this onboarding plan, but what else can you do?
Yeah.
What are you taking the lead on? That's what
Yes.
I'm curious to see at this point.
Totally. And I think we all want that employee that just takes initiative, that sees a problem and then fixes it and then comes to you and says like, hey, there was this thing, but I did this and now it's solved. That is the dream. But it definitely takes a bit of understanding this unique person's personality and how they work with things and how I'm going to communicate with them and how I'm going to tailor these goals to fit them, to really get to that point. So again, time, effort.
Absolutely. And so maybe if they're that person who does have that proactive nature, the response from our end here is spending that next 30-day segment really focusing on reward, recognition, celebration, pumping them up, really boosting their confidence. But if they're maybe less inclined towards that style, then it's really creating a safe space, right? And encouraging them to be proactive and to think these through and boosting them up in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So stronger focus on KPIs and kind of hitting those metrics that were associated with the job description, I think is really important. And then also that cultural check-in, make sure they're integrating well with the team. Do you have any tips for kind of bringing a new employee into this team environment and getting them to really act as one with the team?
I do, for sure. But just really quickly before I do, I think with the KPIs, a really important call out here is be really clear around what your expectations are, not just in terms of the goal, but what happens if they're not hitting it?
Yeah.
Right? I don't feel at that point, it's typically, okay, case by case basis, so I'm not generalizing here, but typically an instance where we would be looking to go down the disciplinary route, right? It's probably that we need some more training, some more development, something like that, maybe a lapse in a skill set that we didn't quite know they had yet. But how we actually approach what they're delivering onto us is something just to keep in the back of our mind there.
Yeah. Well, and I think as you say that, also being open-minded to the fact that maybe it is this employee's skill set is the reason that they aren't hitting this KPI, but also could the way I have delivered this information and trained them have been done in a better manner, especially if it's your first time actually putting a true solid onboarding process and you've been doing everything, wearing all the hats, edit. Trial and error. Take that feedback from the employee and make it better for the next one. So important.
And actively seek that feedback. If you're not continuing to evolve this and continuing to develop your 90-day onboarding plan, then you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Because everyone's perspective is going to be really valuable in how you go about this. But yes, in terms of integrating into the team, one of my favorite things, right? And one of the things over the course of my career that I would probably say I'm the most proud of is seeing people that I've hired, brought into the team who are now best friends with other team members. They've moved in together, right? I even saw not that long ago a marriage from 2 of the team members that I had hired with a baby back in Australia. That sort of thing,
it was your onboarding.
It was literally my 90-day onboarding plan. No, it's such a rewarding element when you get this right and you establish those relationships. It's so much more than just business, right? But at the same time, you don't have to set the world on fire with this, right? I think something as simple as just creating a team bonding event, right? And giving people the opportunity to socialize outside of a work environment can go leaps and bounds. towards building those relationships.
Yeah, I work with a client in the GYSP program who has a little scavenger hunt of like, hey, we don't all cross paths, but it's important that you get to know everyone in the studio. So kind of seek out these little fun things and tidbits of information. And when you come on as a new hire, you also put your fun fact and people have to find you through that. And it just creates this bonding and this like deeper level of connection and that true team mentality we need to get the job done.
Wait, I love that. So you
So cool.
you write a fact about yourself and give it to the new person, but it doesn't have your name on it.
Yeah.
And they have to figure out
It out. Yeah.
I think that's
so
so
smart.
fun.
I know. I saw that and I was like, that's genius. That is so fun.
Wait, I really, really like that. And it gives a prompt for a question as well, right? Because when you're trying to build that relationship, particularly in a work environment, sometimes it's very much like, I want to get to know you, but also is it professional for me to be personal? So having a prompt along those lines, I love that.
Yeah, you're facilitating that culture that you want in your studio.
What would yours be?
Oh man, I don't know.
Let's get to know Caroline.
Get
What
to
would your
know me.
fact be?
I would probably do something. So I saw she had some cool, like they would have to meet around town, like so-and-so's favorite coffee shop or something. And so I would do an outside of the studio meetup at my favorite coffee shop and then just facilitate that time for us to have a conversation where it's like, no, this is not professional. We can just talk and get to know each other because that's going to help us longer term.
I love that.
What about you?
Yeah.
What would yours be?
Ooh, I really like the idea of setting up a coffee. I think in getting out of the studio, I think that that's great. But if we were just talking about facts about myself, it's probably the fact that I've met Taylor Swift 3 times.
It's a pretty big deal.
It's a pretty big flex.
You got to open with that.
Yeah, maybe that should be my new introduction for the podcast. Yeah, 3 times, count them.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay. Well, if we're wrapping up the end of month 2, we're setting goals. Maybe a goal is to meet Taylor Swift and you can help your new hire meet Taylor Swift.
I got you.
Yeah, you've got that action plan. But what are we looking at in terms of setting up goals for a new hire? Longer term, shorter term?
We definitely need a combination of both, right? In terms of the short term, I think it's super important to get some wins on the board so that people's confidence grows, they feel good, they feel really successful in their role. So that's a huge win, right? But we also need longer term goals because we want to ensure this is how they're kind of forming their entire basis for their work life with you. So if we're not starting that, heading in the right direction, then we could really quickly go off course. So I think having a goal to work towards is really, really important, but also getting the short-term wins. We want to get as many of those flowing as we can within this 90-day period, right? Because I think that a key element of this, and this is kind of the less fun part to talk about when it comes to onboarding, is that typically we have a probation period, right? And so that's usually 90 days. And if it's not working out and they're not the right fit, we want to be making that call within the 90 days, okay? So having the goals helps us measure the actual success of this because, again, we could really vibe, like we could all love Taylor Swift, right? But at the end of the day, if the job performance isn't there, then maybe it's not the best fit going forward. So I think that it's really important that we're measuring those wins in terms of outputs within the 90 days so that when we get to the end, we can make that call.
Totally. And I think, again, highlighting those wins and then also when we're setting goals, having that open conversation of like, hey, I'm seeing that you're doing this in this process and it's leading to this. We're not hitting the KPI that I would love to see you here, but I think you're capable of it. So what if we tried this? And like, this is where it becomes really key to have had those one-on-ones to understand, if I have a very introverted employee who's doing sales, I'm maybe not going to ask her to like go above and beyond and be the most outrageously loud person, but I'm going to like give some sly, could you catch this member? Maybe like in the corner as they're walking out and just talk about so-and-so, like really tailoring those goals to support their weaknesses, develop them professionally, but also align with what's actually going to be achievable for them and not make them feel like there's no way I can achieve that in the next 30 days.
Totally. Like figuring out their comfort zone and then just kind of just getting them to step a foot outside of it, right? I'm a huge believer that all of our growth happens outside of our comfort zone, right? So we need to really embrace that, but also that can be really challenging for people. So if we're being really strategic about our 90-day plan, and like you said, we're doing our regular check-in, so we're continuing to evolve it as we go, we're not just ticking a box on a bit of paper, then we can really help them to step outside that comfort zone and push themselves. That's also personally really rewarding, right?
Totally.
We love that. Yeah.
Totally. And I think this is where it becomes important to have some kind of like team meeting cadence, where I always like to have everyone sharing a win and something they're working on, so that we're really facilitating that culture of growth where people understand that, man, even my senior leader is working on something and is trying to get better at something. And I can see where I fit into this puzzle. And yeah, I'm excited to try this thing that is maybe really uncomfortable to me.
Absolutely. I really like that. Yeah, I really like that because I think that we do as humans have a tendency towards drawing comparisons, right? What is that metaphor? It's like, or that saying, it's like comparison is the thief of joy or the enemy of joy or something like that, right? And when we step into a new role, often we've come from a place where we've been for a while, we know everything like the back of our hand, we're the go-to, right? And other times we step in and we're like, okay, I feel like the bottom of the pecking order here. Even though that's not technically the case, we should not be creating that environment. People do feel that way, right? So I really, really like hearing that, everyone is continuing to develop and we're creating that culture of continuous development within the studio. Huge.
Yeah,
huge.
Absolutely. And then if we end month 2 with these new goals set, and we understand that we're in this 90-day probationary period, I think that leads us into month 3 of onboarding really nicely to be like, okay, I got the job. I know what's expected of me. I have goals to hit. I have to kick it into high gear here.
Yeah, absolutely. And by that point, they've had enough training. We can
Hopefully,
still support.
yeah.
We can still support if we've identified something. But at that point, it's like, all right, put your foot on the accelerator. Let's really see what you're made of here, right? Let's drive the business. Let's drive the results. And that's a very interesting part to see.
And this is where I really like to lead the employee into some initiative taking experiences. Maybe it's an instructor and it's like, you have nailed that 6 a.m. vinyasa class. And now I want you to try leading a workshop and really think through, like, who is our client avatar? What would they like to learn? Who am I seeing? How would I market this? Just like give them a little project that's maybe slightly outside of, again, their comfort zone and their immediate job description, but is important to the studio and may also kind of foster that, like, yeah, I'm part of something bigger. This is cool.
Yeah. And I really love that you just said that point too, important to the studio. Right? I think so often we get into these businesses in boutique fitness because we're people, right? And we love the connections with people and developing people and all of that, which is the greatest foundation to build this onboarding on. However, at the end of the day, we need the business successful, right? And everyone we bring on is designed to enhance our business. So making sure that the goals are not just for their personal development, but they actually translate into business results.
Yes.
Don't forget that.
Yes. And this like month 3 might also be where I kind of slowly ease them into the, you never know what's coming around the corner kind of nature of the business, where it's like, yes, you have your daily, your weekly, and your monthly check-ins, but now here's this curveball, and we were kind of sheltering it from you before, but this is a thing that the team has to deal with. What do you do?
Yeah, totally. So it's day 90, right? I've been there for 90 days. What am I doing on the 90th day? Like, this all feels like it's building up to this climax. Like, how do we end this process?
I like to do a check-in. I like to, just as I do with a one-on-one, give a feedback form. Like, I want the employee to come in having really thought about and reflected on their 90 days. And their direct manager, whoever it is, will do the same. And again, it's one of those, like, are we aligned? Do we both think this is going the same direction? What's happening here? And so I'm always really interested, and I let the employee lead first and then come in. And again, it's about setting longer term goals and really like assessing and talking openly about how it's gone. What's your take on day 90?
Yeah. Well, I always just say, if they have, congratulations, you've passed your probationary period, right? You've made it, you've survived, hopefully thrived. Yeah. Very different conversation if they're not passing, right? But put that to the side for now. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's a chance to reflect, celebrate all the wins, right? And do a benchmarking process of, look, when you started, this is where you were at. 90 days later, this is where you're at. Imagine where you will be in the next 90 days from here, right? So it's a retroactive celebration, right? But it's also looking forward. And I think with what we've learnt from that 90 days, really going, okay, these are your strengths. So we're going to have you owning these sorts of responsibilities, right? We know you're good at this. We know you're going to be successful in these. But in order to round out your skill set, here are some goals relating to your areas of development or opportunity or whatever it might be. But I think for me, the most important thing to walk away from with that is with them feeling excited. Right? Because like I said, this whole thing has felt like it's led up to a climax. We want to maintain that energy and that excitement, right? So how do we get them walking away feeling like, yes, I'm just as excited for the next 90 days?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, what if we have that employee that we're like, oh, this is not a good fit? Maybe skills wise, maybe culture wise. How do we ease into that conversation?
Oh, yikes. It's a hard one, right? It really is a hard one. I think that I was going to say there's no right or wrong way to have that conversation, but there's definitely a wrong way to have that conversation.
Yeah. A lot of right ways.
Right, a lot of right ways. More so what I meant was everyone's going to have that conversation slightly differently, right? So regardless of how you frame it and the approach that you take to it, you've got 90 days worth of evidence behind you that can back up your decision making around this, right? We trained you on this. We checked in about this on this date. We recalibrated this thing. So it's not just a willy-nilly decision that's been made, right? And I would expect that at that point, if you did need to say, unfortunately, we're parting ways to this person, there would be zero surprises. If that person is surprised, then we need to look back at the last 90 days and go, where did we miss out, right? What's the gap here? So ideally in that conversation, it should just be a mutual understanding that this is what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, like a reflection period for yourself as the owner or manager of like, is there anything more I could have done in that situation? Was it on me? Was it a mix? It doesn't really matter, but always learning, always getting better. Even if you have a really stellar onboarding and you're like, man, that employee is my new top performer. I love them. What could I have done better there? Like what else could I eke out of them?
Totally. Well, you sound great, Carolyn, and I want to work for you because you've described this, you've got me excited to work for you. So one last thing before we wrap is I want to ask you a logistical question, right? So we've spoken about all these great ideas and all these things that we're going to do. How are you actually managing this process? Like, where does this 90-day onboarding document live? How do I use it? Like, logistically, tell me how to execute this.
Yeah. I love a spreadsheet, but I am a spreadsheet brain. So maybe that isn't for everyone, but some kind of working document where you can have it templated. I would say like if one action item you take from this episode is sit down and really think through how you want to onboard employees for 90 days and then just like make a copy, tailor it to the person's name, pre-fill the dates, and that's your checkbox. Where it's like, oh, I missed that check-in on week 2. Maybe if I hadn't have missed that check-in, things would have gone differently or we wouldn't have had this outcome. So I think finding a way to manage it, whether it's in a task management system or a document or a spreadsheet where it just lives there and you can edit it and you can see what worked and what didn't is so important.
Yep. And I love a calendar reminder
as
well. I'm definitely that person who lives through the calendar reminders. So even if you need to set up a reminder system, just weekly or every few days, just set it as a reminder so it pops up and it says refer to Carolyn's onboarding plan, right? Check in on Carolyn's onboarding plan, whatever it may be, just to keep it at the forefront of your mind that you can't let this one slip.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay. Well, I think we've set people up to really start critically thinking about their onboarding process and again, build that dream team. We chatted on recruiting earlier. So now we're moving towards the next step. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, like I said, I just want to work for you. I think that if you're doing that, then you're going to have a really successful onboarding. You're going to be setting people up for success and, really driving high performing teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have one more episode coming in this series, so make sure to stay tuned for more. In the meantime, subscribe, share this with somebody. If you think your manager could really just dive into the onboarding process for you and make it so efficient and streamlined, share this episode with them, and we'll catch you all on the next one.
Thank you.